Welcome back to the Dota Radio Morning Show. It's presented by Dota Radio, the internet radio dedicated to Dota 2. Almost forgot our own plug to start things off. Make sure you visit us at dotaradio.com, folks, to learn more about our audio-only style of commentary. As always, feel free to tweet at us, at ZyoriTV, at the Dota Radio, and at HippieCasting. Last episode, Monolith is not going to be back with us. He'll be back with us on Monday, but today we're doing things in reverse. Usually we do those interviews in the second portion of our show, and today, because we were delayed from casting, we are going to get right into it. And we do have our guest with us. So I was going to say Zippy. Hippie is joining me as well. Chris, how are you today, sir?
I'm great, man. We just had a great series to start off the day, and now we get to do a nice show here. I'm excited.
I'm excited as well. So without any further ado, we already have on the line Sneyking. Sir, how are you doing today?
Just fine. How are you, sir?
Oh, I'm fabulous. We had an epic BO3 between Fnatic and Virtus Pro. So I can't complain. Seeing some epic, a 50-minute game with Era on anti-mage. Oh, always exciting, always exciting. So thank you for being flexible with your scheduling, first of all. First I told you 10:30, then I said 12:30, and it is now 1:30, and we're still here. So I thank you for being flexible and putting up with our bullshit. So talk to us a little bit about what you've been up to recently. I have you listed as being on team Super Strong Dinosaurs. How is that working out for you?
We've been just recently playing some small tournaments to begin, as all teams do, and we recently competed in the few of the tournaments, and we actually won a couple €1,000, and we were pretty happy. And one of the more notable tournaments we are placing in is Star Ladders for next season. And disappointingly, the bigger teams like Navi and Alliance are not going to be playing in the next season, so it's going to be little bit lower tier teams like Mouse and other new formed team like such as Sigma International and etc.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that's a little bit of a bummer. I hadn't heard that yet about the next installation of Star Ladder. I'm a big Star Ladder fan. We casted season 7, so that stinks a little bit. But there are a lot of tournaments going on right now. So that's exciting to hear. Does the name anything significant? What is it? Super Strong Dinosaurs? Does that have any special meaning, or just a goofy name you guys drew out of a hat?
I mean, it really doesn't hold any significance to itself. It's just, we thought of it. It was just sounded funny, so there's like, sure, let's go along with it. It's similar to how my first team Pond Bomb started. It was catchy, and then we just started saying it, and then it became a team name.
Right. And the roster...
That sounds fearsome to me. Super Strong Dinosaurs? I wouldn't want to go up against that. I'd run away.
Yeah. So we've got Come With Me, Arise, Sexy Bambo, of course, Sneyking, and Mini. And that's the roster you guys have right now. If I'm not mistaken, you are the mid player on that roster?
No, I'm the carry player, actually.
So you're position 1?
Yes.
Oh, exciting. A nice change of pace. When you were on Dignitas, if I recall correctly, you were position 3, correct?
I played both 3 and 2. I played 3, and then when I came back from my school break, I was playing the mid solo.
Okay. So how is it adjusting to the position 1 role? Are you enjoying it?
I mean, the position 1 has a lot of stresses because it's definitely it's the most important role in the team, but I think I'll be able to manage, and the adjustment is not significant as back in the days of Dota 1 and Heroes of New Earth. I always played a hard carry role, and it's pretty natural to me to be playing this role again.
Right. Cool. Well, that's exciting to hear. So the way we're going to do this interview, I've got a couple of kind of current event questions that I'm curious about your take on, and then we made a Reddit thread, and we got at least 3 or 4 good questions out of the Reddit thread, so we'll throw those that way and see how you fare. So first things first, this is going to be a talking point we have later on in the show. Have you followed at all the recent drama between Alliance and Sigma that happened yesterday with Admiral Bulldog's tweets and then Loda's blog? Are you up to date with all that stuff?
I'm slightly informed of what's going on. I have read a couple of the Twitter tweets.
Yeah, the tweets were sort of interesting, and that's what started the whole thing off. But Loda's blog is really the key thing that I wanted to ask you about your opinion. Because right now there's no doubt that we have a saturation in tournaments. You know, there have never been this many big Dota 2 tournaments before where there's, $50,000, $30,000, $40,000 prize pool, and scheduling is just a nightmare for these teams. And that's really what this whole thing started about. Alliance and Sigma needed a reschedule because Alliance is going to Korea for the Nexon tournament, and they couldn't agree on a time, and that was where Bulldog's rage came out with that Sigma was hard to reschedule with, so they're a bunch of dicks, direct quote. What do you think about that? What can we do as a scene to try and fix the problem where everything is so saturated now that teams are sort of struggling to schedule their matches after playing Dota all day? What can we do to try and remedy this problem in the scene right now?
I mean, I believe it's, first of all, it's not the players or the management issues of the teams' fault, because they only have so many time slots and there are so many tournaments, so it's not their fault that multiple tournaments are clashing on the same day. I believe it is the tournament organizers' problem that they're not communicating with each other well enough. Like for example, the Chinese the league, like they knew exactly the clashing dates and like well ahead of time, and they managed to work something out. I just feel like not every tournament organizers are doing these ahead plannings as they should be.
Yeah, and that is one issue where you're right. Everyone's sort of fighting for that prime time, and one of the things that Lotus suggested was some sort of an esports-esque union. And to me, as soon as I hear anything like that, I just think KESPA. It already exists in Korea, guys. We have a standard for this, and I think most people are not big fans of KESPA. Do you have any comment on that, about some sort of a union or a global sort of organization that would be in charge of policing, controlling, organizing that stuff? I mean, it sounds kind of good on paper, but the problem is who's in charge of it? Who controls it? How do you decide who gets the primetime slots? That's the logistical part is what make that difficult from my aspect. Do you have any thoughts about that front and being a remedy to this issue?
I mean, like as you said, there are many problems within having a union. Just like, for example, who's in charge and who gets the prime time, because everyone wants the prime time. No one's gonna want the secondary times. It's gonna be very problematic. So I feel that they should just simply split up the prime times in the week, given like Monday, Wednesdays for this tournament, Tuesday, Thursdays for another tournament, and then it will also allow the teams to select which day they can play, because typically the schedules are pretty similar on the weekdays, and then weekends are usually pretty free for most of everyone.
Right. Yeah, but it is a big problem. And on the note of scheduling, I know right now you are a student and you're playing Dota quite a bit. You guys are on a competitive team, not on one of the big teams, but still a competitive team nonetheless. How do you find yourself balancing school with Dota? Is it challenging? Do you find yourself often having to stay up late to play in matches where you have class the next day, situations like that?
I personally knew that I knew exactly what I was getting myself into, so I scheduled classes during the mornings, and I'm done with classes after 3 hours every day in the morning. So and then I go eat lunch, so it's very convenient for me.
Yeah.
And then I come back and start playing some scrims, and then I have time to spend the rest of the night and the evening to myself.
Wow, that's a pretty slick schedule. I was expecting kind of the opposite answer, but that's awesome. I'm jealous, man. That's awesome. So talk to us about NA Dota right now. Obviously, you're a North American player, so that does give you a sort of a special bit of insight into the North American scene and some of the problems it's had in the past with not being particularly vibrant. MLG has kind of nipped that in the bud a little bit because they have pledged all this huge money. Their league so far has been going well. MLG Columbus is just 2 weeks away, right around the corner. Any thoughts about NA Dota in general and the impact that MLG has had on it thus far, good or bad?
I believe MLG is definitely a good influence on the NA Dota scene, but the magnitude of its impact, I'm not sure how much it will actually affect the Dota scene, because in the current scene, and it's been true for many years in the NA Dota scene, it's just the lack of teams, the lack of motivation, and the simply lack of good players, quality players. And even to today's day, after TI, it's most prominent. I would say that is the most American teams right now. There's two to three with Dignitas, CG, Liquid. But the issue still remains. It's still 3 teams out of out of like hundreds of teams in the world, and the United States is not a small country. In comparison to Europe, it's basically a whole Europe. But yet Europe has so many teams, while US only has 3.
Yeah. So I mean, do you think that MLG pledging this money? I mean, this Columbus tournament isn't what's big. It's the 2014 circuit that's going to be huge. The finals culminating June of next year in Anaheim. That's like what, 250,000, 200,000. Like, is that enough money, do you think, to motivate more North American players to come out of the woodwork and actually put in the time it takes to be a pro player? Or do you think, even though like 200,000, that's a huge prize pool, that's great, but maybe it's still not enough for people to like quit their jobs to train for? I mean, it ain't no 2.8 million for TI. Thoughts about that prize pool? Is it kind of that number where it's great but not enough to entice new players? Do you think it's big enough that we may actually see some breakout teams in the upcoming 2014 circuit?
I believe the main issue with Dota in the North American scene in general is just the lack of enough sufficient player base. Like you're gonna like there's gonna be like always that 0.0001% that are gonna always succeed, but there's only like a couple 100,000 players in America. If you just increase that by 10, you're gonna have an increased number of teams by 10 or so. So I believe the major issues is just advertisements into North America and how Dota is simply have people played in comparison to League, because League is much more popular in America currently, especially on the East and West Coast than Dota. Just unfortunate how it is.
No, I think you're absolutely right, and I think a big piece of that is just marketing. League of Legends has done, a Riot in particular, I guess I should say, have done a lot more in terms of pushing League in front of people. You go into a GameStop and there's League of Legends shit everywhere. There's no Dota stuff, sitting in the window advertising, skins or items or what have you. So I think you kind of hit the nail on the head with that. That's what money isn't the issue. The issue is just having more people that can play Dota and appreciate it and have it at their disposal. Whereas right now, League has been one of the driving MOBAs in our country. So how about the MLG Columbus? It was announced last night, their sort of compendium model now. They're going to have the MLG bundle. It's $10, $2.5 or $2.50 of it go to the prize pool, and with that you get a bunch of perks. You get your courier, your HUD, and then that makes you available to get in-game items. On top of the fact that they have a free ticket for MLG Columbus. You can watch it completely free through the client. Anyone has access to it. Any thoughts about that style of revenue model? It's a little bit different from what a lot of these other tournament organizers are going for. First of all, do you think it's a good idea? And second of all, do you think it's sustainable? Do you think MLG will be able to use this model in future tournaments to some degree of success?
I think it will be very sustainable and profitable for MLG, because just last night it was just announced about the MLG championship, and today we look at the base prize pool is it's already hitting $76,000 overnight, increased by 50%, which is pretty insane if you ask me.
That's huge.
I mean, yeah, just for a tournament. I think these models are what's going to be all future tournaments are going to be like, where the audience have a chance to chip in a little bit on the prize pool and encourage the players to play better and just simply drive the competition and community as one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm a big fan of that model, and I like the idea of giving people the option for items, because there are folks like myself who don't really care about rares all that much. I don't trade them. I like hearing about people losing their huge amount of rares and upsets, but I don't do it. That's not something I care about. But it's a really cool incentive. I like that it's something that people are excited about, and here's a way for you to be involved in it. It's just it's a really cool, unique kind of a relationship with how it's totally optional, but people really like it, and they'd be willing. It's like seen as a good value in the bundle, so it's a neat thing. Chris, do you want to chime in here while I try and organize some of these Reddit questions?
Do
you have anything?
As we were talking about the fact that one of the big reasons we think that that Dota isn't quite as big is because League is so huge, and I agree with you on that. I think League really just eats up at our market share quite significantly. Do you think that there's going to be some progression towards Dota, some migration? Do you think that there's something Valve can do to get more people into Dota, or do you think this is just kind of what Americans like? Do you think they want the more League style MOBA and they don't want Dota as much?
From what I've talked to many League players, or my real life friends, and just other fans in general, League is a much more casual game. The learning curve, as everyone talks about, is very, very small and insignificant, and just fun to play with many friends. I think it's just a much more casual game in comparison to Dota, in my opinion. Because of that, people like to play with friends much more. And on top of that, the currently League, I would say, is more well refined than Dota because there are a lot of more game modes and other things you can do on League, and there's a very explicit yellow system, rating system, in which the Dota lacks. And I think a lot of the competitive players in Dota, despite not being a competitive player, wants that just know what their rating is and they work hard for it, because that number drives people to do things and just drives people to become better players, or sometimes even smack talk in chat, but that's irrelevant.
Yeah.
Like I think it just, if Dota wants to become a different version, isolate itself from not being the casual game, it needs to really define itself as a competitive player game, so that it draws the competitive players from the American player base, while League will get the casual player base. And I think that's what Dota needs to do, is to really well define itself against League of Legends, and so that it'll be able to have a different pool of players that it's looking for, so it doesn't overlap with League,
Right.
and actually compete against it.
Interesting, and I think you're absolutely right about let League take the casuals, let Dota take the more hardcore competitive folks, whatever you want to call them. I think you're absolutely spot on with that. And if I'm not mistaken, are you implying that if Dota implemented sort of a ladder system similar to the one in League of Legends, that would help that or hinder that?
I guess it would. It would do both at the same time. I mean, I understand why Valve doesn't want to implement a system because of this trash talking about and other things you can possibly get from a rating system.
Right.
But I think they're focusing too much on the negative sides of that aspect, instead of not focusing on the positive things it can bring to the table. It just, I mean, having a rating system really just makes your players play more, and when the players play more, they're more into the game, and simply they would ask their friends to play with them, and the game would just simply get bigger because of that. Spread a word. And I think that's what it really needs, Dota, because it's so hard to find any advertisement for Dota outside of just the realm of Dota itself. You would never see any, at least in America, you wouldn't see like posters or any TV ads or anything about this. And while you, as you said, I mentioned earlier, just going to GameStop and you see a shit ton of stuff for League of Legends. It's just, there's no exposure for Dota.
Yeah, it's a good point, especially in North America where it's not quite as popular. In Europe, for some reason, that CIS region, that kind of Lithuania area, Romania, it's just ridiculous how popular Dota is and how quickly that spread throughout Europe. And here in North America, we're still playing catch up a little bit. Definitely spot on. So, all right, let's take a couple of Reddit questions here. A couple of these are pretty quick and easy. So how about some hard predictions on MLG Columbus? This individual wants to know your top 3 that will place at the tournament.
My top 3 is definitely going to be, in no particular order. I think Liquid will do very well along with Team DK, and and honestly, I really like Fnatic because they're honestly a wild card for me. I'm not sure how they're gonna do because they have so many strategies up their sleeve. I'm not sure if they're gonna work really well or it's gonna backfire them. So those are my 3 top contenders. I feel they're really
Alliance
really
in your
well.
top 3.
I mean, I'm not sure how Alliance does very well on land, but I feel maybe they're gonna be above Liquid. But it's honestly a very close competition. It's very hard to tell. It's like the international. Any team can come on top. It's just simply if they make a small mistake, it's going to come down to that one small or a couple of small mistake, and that's going to be costing them the game.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. And with talent that intense, it is definitely hard to predict. I will level with you there. I think the big wild card going into it is DK with the Chinese meta. It's either going to be they're going to come in and just be a hop and a skip ahead of everyone else and just demolish them with their playstyle, or it's going to be the opposite, I think. And I really don't know because we don't see those two metas clash very often. I'm really pumped up about how that's going to play out. So, all right, who would you say right now is the best player in terms of individual skill, excluding yourself, of course?
Wow. Alright, I don't know about that. Never mind. I'm just kidding. It's really hard to say because every player plays the best at their own role. There's no player in general, just one does all. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you're looking for one player that simply knows most about the game, like knowing how to play each role really well, I would say that would be Fear, honestly. in terms of individual skill, just knowing the game simply. Because you watch him play hard carry this one game, and then a couple months later you watch him play support, and it's both. It's like it's spot on. He knows exactly what he's doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that is one thing about, I guess, about that question. I didn't take it quite on that angle, but you're right. Everybody has their own sort of niche and skill set, but very few players are truly balanced in terms of their ability to play all roles. I have to say, No Tail is pretty high for me in terms of individual skill, because he can play pretty much every role, and he's pretty ridiculous. Any comments about No Tail in context of that question?
I mean, yeah, No Tail was a great player. He started as a mid-solo player, and when he transitioned to Dota, now he plays support for this team. I mean, I think it was not that big of a rough transition, because he started out as Dota on a support, but it's definitely a significant transition, nevertheless.
Yeah.
And I'm surprised that he made it that way, and he adjusted that well.
Yeah. Yeah, he's me too. In my heart, he's still a mid player. In my heart of hearts, but that comes from some of my Han background, of course, and Chris's Han background as well.
Indeed.
This is another good question while we're on the Han topic. What heroes do you miss from Heroes of Newerth that aren't in Dota?
What heroes do I miss?
Yeah.
I think one of the more reminiscing things about Han is I personally really enjoy playing Amon-Ra. The idea of it's basically like a Huskar, except it's on steroids.
Yeah, Huskar with a huge amount of AoE burst damage and like a radiant
and Skeleton
aura.
King ultimate.
Yeah, with like Jesus. Yeah, Rob was pretty fun. I see why you miss him. What about you, Chris? If you had to pull one hero out of Han and bring him into Dota for funsies?
Electrician, hands down. I loved Electrician. That dude was a blast.
That's another good one. You know, I have to admit, Sneyking, or Sneyking, pardon me. I would have thought Sneyking. Jesus, I'm so sorry. Monkey King is the popular answer to that question we hear the most. Were you a big Monkey King fan or not so much?
I mean, Monkey King was definitely fun, but I didn't actually get to play that much. But I would agree. I would see why Monkey King is a popular choice as well.
Yeah. I hate Monkey King. I can't play him. I can't play against him. I hate that bloke. He's ridiculous. Glad he's not in Dota. You know.
Another hero I really miss would be Chipper. I mean,
that's a good
Chipper.
one.
Come on, guys. You can't deny Chipper.
Yeah, any skill shot hero, I like it. I liked watching Chipper games quite a bit. So, yeah.
Shout out to Taku.
Yeah. So, all right. So this is a question that I'm a little bit confused about. We had to do some research to figure this one out, and I hope this isn't moving into to rough territory here. Please feel free to invoke your Fifth Amendment rights here. But it is referring to: is there any truth to the rumors of being blackballed from all NA teams? And as an addendum to that, are you willing to change, or is your attitude more like "fuck 'em"? I'll go out on my own and do it my own way. Does that question make sense in context of your current point in Dota? Is there any truth to that?
I personally, it's just, I think people, I agree that I used to be very irrational and sort of just always angry. But I mean, I personally changed quite a bit as I see it, grew up a little bit more and currently in college now, finally. And I definitely see why people still hold that stigma against me, and I don't blame them for that. And I'm just living with it. I mean, I'm not going to go out of my way just to try to convince them that I'm changed. There's no point in doing that. Actions will speak for itself.
Right.
So I'm just going to continue doing what I'm doing and hope that they'll see that there are changes made. If not, it's fine.
That's the spirit. That's good. I think that's a nice balanced approach, and important to recognize there that actions speak louder than words in pretty much every case. So that is a very mature response. How about that? So that's actually pretty much all I have, I think. This question, I don't know, does this mean anything? Do you understand that in Africa, many people grow up orphans suffering from malnutrition? I don't know what that question means, but it has a couple upvotes. Is that an inside joke that I should get?
It's an allusion to Swindle Melons.
Swindle Melons. Do you and Swindle have a history? Are you guys BFFs or arch enemies?
And we used to be arch enemies, but we just talk now. We're still friends. I mean, last stream hack, DreamHack Summer, I was talking to him a little bit. I mean, we're friends. We're not eating each other or anything like that.
Yeah, Swindle's an interesting character. Let me put it that way. I've never had any specific problems with him, but I get the feeling he doesn't like me and thinks I'm kind of obnoxious. But I don't know. I get that feeling about a lot of people that turn out not to be true. Maybe I'm just paranoid. The Han days. Oh, man. Chris, do you have anything else you want to add here?
No, I'm pretty good. Thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah. Sneyking, we really do appreciate it. Again, I'm sorry about the scheduling issues. I'm glad you're sort of flexible, as are we. Any shout-outs or anything else you'd like to say? On your little overlay here, I do have your Twitter as well as your Twitch posted, so people will know how to find that. But anything else you want to add, go for it.
No, that would be really it. It's just a small thing my friend asked me if anyone's interested in an MLG fantasy bet sort of thing. We're doing one with a couple of my friends. If you're interested, just tweet me at Sneyking Dota 2 and we can figure out something out. It'll be like a $20 buy-in. It'll be just a fun thing.
Ah, interesting. All right. So again, that is Sneyking Dota 2 on Twitter, and your Twitch is just Sneyking. So you guys can find that. One last question here. I like this from Falcon Bandwagon. He's a repeat viewer, so we'll take the question. Any opinions on Stay Free or Jigglebilly? That's a really good question. Now that Stay Free, the kind of Han crew playing in Dota, any thoughts about them in general?
I feel that Stay Free are definitely making the transition, but it is going to take quite a bit of time, just like how Fnatic and myself personally took. I would say we need to give them at least another year for them to truly see themselves accelerating at Dota.
Yeah.
And I've been playing a lot with the Peter and Tralf and Zai and all those guys, and they're definitely making progress. And I would say the only flaw they have is sort of picks. They're not really completely adjusted to Dota sort of mentality yet. So I feel like their Han experience, they definitely have the mechanics from playing Han. It's just the picks and ideas of Dota. They're not there yet. And then for Jigglebilly, I mean he's got a personality for himself, and many people like it. And I sometimes watch some of his videos, so it's pretty hilarious. But in terms of playing competitively and just as a good player, I mean, I'm not sure if that's what he's looking for. I think he's personally just trying to enjoy Dota and have fun with a little bit. So that's my 2 cents on him. Yeah. So if he wants to play competitive, I'm not sure if he's doing the right approach.
I think that is a nice balanced approach to Jigglebilly. I will second that. You're right. Definitely a player with some skills, but I don't know. I don't know if there's enough Riddlin in the world to keep him focused long enough to really break into the competitive scene as a true competitor, but we'll see. No offense to Jigglebilly. I've never talked to him, but I know who he is quite well. So awesome. Well, again, Sneyking, thank you very much. We do appreciate you coming on. That's actually going to wrap up part 1 of the Dota Radio Morning Show today, guys. We've got a lot of interesting talking points. News going to be coming your way in part 2, coming back here in just a couple of minutes. Don't nobody go nowhere, because the Dota Radio Morning Show episode 9 will continue.